Welcome back and thank you very much for staying with us. This is Beyond Wild is One. We're glad you're watching. I'm Eric Njoka. Let's begin with what happened today. US says Russia and Ukraine have agreed to Black Sea truce separate Saudi talks. Kiev urges Washington for more talks on US brokered agreement.
Colleagues and I feel very strongly about the war planning meeting over unclassified phones. Obviously reckless, obviously dangerous.
The biggest peacetime military buildup in history.
Were these government devices?
Senate Intel Committee Vice Chair terms journalist being added to the Yemen strike chart as mind-boggling. US Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard and top security officials testify in a Senate hearing that the group chart contained no classified information. "62 people killed in the last 24 hours in continued Israeli bombing of Gaza. According to the Hamas Health Ministry, nearly 800 killed since Israel resumed airstrikes. United Nations is set to reduce its aid footprint in Gaza. Syria slams ongoing Israeli attacks on the country as a flagrant violation of its sovereignty. Israel carried out deadly bombardment in Israel's southern Daraa province earlier today. Turkish Interior Minister says more than 1,400 people have now been arrested for what he called illegal demonstrations that have swept the country since March 19th. United Nations expresses concern over widespread detentions. Blowback grows days before a US delegation visits Greenland. Now, Danish Prime Minister Frederiksen says unacceptable pressure is being put on both Greenland and Denmark, reiterates that she would resist pressure from the White House. In a landmark decision, World Athletics will introduce mandatory testing for anyone entering female competitions to verify their biological sex. World Athletics Chief Sebastian Coe says the step is necessary to protect the integrity of female events. The move comes 2 years after World Athletics banned transgender women from competing in female events. Sebastian Coe said that cheek swab tests will be used to determine the biological sex of the athletes. The tests would seek to verify if someone has transitioned to a female after going through male puberty or if they had differences of sex development, commonly known as DSD, which provides testosterone advantages. The athletes would only need to take this test once in their careers. The test will look for the SRY gene, which forms part of the male Y chromosome.
Will be for athletes to be able to compete in the female category. The process is very straightforward, frankly very clear, and it's an important one. And we need to look. We will look for a testing provider. We will work on the timelines, and the test will only need to be done once in the career life of an athlete. So we are very clear, and that was agreed today in Council.
No timeline has officially been set, but Coe hopes to have kits in place before World Championships in Tokyo this September. Coe believes that the test will be able to stand up to legal scrutiny.
We've been to the Court of Arbitration on our DSD regulations. They've been upheld, and they've again been upheld after appeal. So we will doggedly protect the female category, and we'll do whatever is necessary to do it, and we're not just talking about it.
Remember, Coe lost the IOC president elections to Kirsty Coventry, which means he will remain World Athletics chief till 2027.
Right now, Aurora police are investigating a crash that killed one man and sent 6 others to the hospital. Thanks for joining me for 9 News at Noon. I'm Lawrence Cafidi. Early this morning, Aurora police say an officer saw a Tesla driver going 97 miles per hour near Alameda and Quintero Way. The officer tried to make a traffic stop, but the driver sped off. Police say that Tesla then ran a red light at South Airport Boulevard, hitting one car before spinning out and slamming into 2 more. The Tesla driver died on scene. 6 people, 2 adults and 4 children, were in the initial crash, and they were taken to the hospital with minor injuries.
Over 1,000 people are being told to evacuate as a wildfire rages through southwest Japan. The fire began on March 23rd and has since destroyed an estimated 214 hectares. It comes as weather officials forecast dry weather throughout the area. Japan's military has dispatched helicopters to help extinguish the blaze. Another wildfire 100 kilometers away also started on Sunday. That blaze burned through 250 hectares of land and damaged 6 buildings.
The United States is facing a severe egg shortage driven by the worst bird flu outbreak in history. Since early 2022, the virus has wiped out nearly 170 million chickens, turkeys and other birds, leading to a sharp drop in egg supply. As a result, wholesale egg prices surged 53.6% in February, forcing stores to limit stock and restaurants to raise prices. In response, the Trump administration announced a $1 billion plan to lower egg costs. This includes virus prevention measure, vaccine research, and expanding imports from countries like Brazil, Turkey, and South Korea. U.S. egg imports from Brazil alone jumped 93% last month compared to 2024, according to the Brazilian Animal Protein Association, that is. Well, beyond imports, the administration is also looking at regulatory changes to allow broiler chicken eggs laid by chickens raised for meat, to be used in foods like cake mixes and salad dressings. Currently, 360 million broiler eggs are discarded annually. As the U.S. scrambles to stabilize egg prices, it has also relaxed import restrictions. In January, the administration approved Brazilian eggs for usage into food goods, a shift from their previous use in pet food. Meanwhile, states like Nevada and Arizona have suspended cage-free eggs laws to address supply shortages. Nevada paused a 2021 law requiring all eggs sold in the state to be cage-free, while Arizona lawmakers are mulling removing a similar rule. These policy shifts mark a departure from past consumer-driven demand for cage-free eggs, as shortages and rising prices reshape priorities in the U.S.
The 5 lions stepped out into their new home for the very first time, marking the end of a 10-month-long rescue mission from the war-torn nation of Ukraine. The United Kingdom is now housing the big cats that were rescued from Ukraine last year. We'll leave you with these images. Thanks for watching.
These women are waiting at a makeshift family planning clinic in rural Sierra Leone. Women's reproductive rights, including the choice to abort, are on the cusp of a new dawn as Parliament of the West African country debates the Safe Motherhood Bill.
I was 16 years old. I became pregnant and I have to take abortion pills, which was a traumatizing one. I did it once, it didn't work. I did it for the second time, that worked. This gave me the cause to focus my education, my activism on SRH issues, because I've been a victim. I don't want other girls to be a victim of it. That's why one of the main reasons I'm pushing this bill, I'm in support of this bill.
But the bill has met opposition from religious leaders who want it revised to only permit abortion in the event of life-threatening risk, rape or incest.
Certain things in this bill did not, support our religious values and sensibilities. So if on those grounds we are judged to be unfair to women, to be hard-hearted, then so be it.
Supporters of the bill say unsafe abortions account for around 10% of maternal deaths. Being illegal, those seeking the procedure go to backstreet clinics or use crude methods which often end in fatalities.
By the time they come to the hospital, there will be so many complications which we ourselves we cannot handle, and some of them will not even come to the hospital. So we are trying to reduce maternal deaths, but if abortion bill is not legalized, the moment they want to remove the pregnancy, you cannot stop them. They do it where at the end of the day, it ends up taking their lives.
Sierra Leone could become the second country in West Africa to decriminalize abortion. Government officials have called the bill a necessary response to prevent deaths from botched abortions.
Welcome back. President Trump's Social Security nominee testifying before the Senate Finance Committee today. This as DOGE gets pushback for looking to cut fraud and waste at the agency. Hillary Vaughn joins us live on Capitol Hill with the latest. Hi, Hillary.
Hi, Jackie. Well, Social Security is running out of money if Congress does nothing. But even though the Department of Government Efficiency has been weeding out fraud from the program, finding ways to make sure Social Security's dwindling resources are not being spoiled and exploited, Democrats would rather have DOGE stay out of it.
Musk is running roughshod. He could care less about what the function is. He wants a body count. You're going to be under the thumb of DOGE. That's the aspect of this that worries me.
I'm planning on running the agency, reporting to the president, and I think the president has made it clear that DOGE is there for input, but the agency heads own their decisions.
Keep Musk the hell out of Social Security, please.
But DOGE has been delivering results, digging into fraud and waste in the program that could be delinquent in 10 years. DOGE giving an update on their work, saying, quote, for the past 3 weeks, Social Security has been executing a major cleanup of their records. Approximately 7 million number holders, all listed age 120 plus, have now been marked as deceased. Another 5 million to go. Republicans say Democrats are in denial about the issues with the program and chose to ignore it under Biden.
We know that service and wait times and backlogs have existed. You've heard us all mention this. But you know what is so interesting is they accepted that during the Biden administration, and they refused to call it out. Speak as your approach to fraud and improper payments by using technology to trace and chase.
I helped 3,500 banks figure out how to eliminate their fraud. It's a data business.
It's not just Social Security that has an age problem. According to Elon Musk, the Small Business Administration issued a loan to a 9-month-old baby. Jackie?
I'm national correspondent Kayla Gaskins. Another Columbia University student reportedly faces deportation after she participated in pro-Palestinian protests on campus. 21-year-old Yunsa Chung, a Columbia University student who protested against Israel on campus, filing a lawsuit Monday accusing the Trump administration of illegally targeting her for deportation.
Her offense was, as far as we can tell, attending one pro-Palestine rally.
Chung, a legal U.S. resident, moved to the U.S. from South Korea with her family when she was 7. According to the lawsuit, earlier this month, immigration officials informed her lawyers her lawful permanent resident status is being revoked. The attorneys allege this is because of her political views and constitutionally protected protesting. Meanwhile, the families of Israeli hostages filing their own lawsuit against another pro-Palestine Columbia University activist, Mahmoud Khalil, and several other student groups. The suit reportedly calls Khalil Hamas's propaganda arm in New York City. Khalil, also a legal U.S. resident, remains detained at an immigration facility in Louisiana.
The detention and threatened deportation of Mahmoud is illegal and is a direct assault on our constitutional rights to due process, freedom of speech, a right to protest.
In an effort to reinstate $400 million of revoked federal funding over the school's handling of the pro-Palestinian protests, Columbia University acquiescing to a list of demands from the Trump administration. The school's faculty staging their own protest to voice frustration with the leader's decision. On Truth Social earlier this month, Trump promising to stop all federal funding for schools allowing what he calls illegal protests, promising violators will be arrested and expelled. Those who are not citizens will be deported. The president adding no masks to the message. Seemingly undeterred, dozens of Columbia students also demonstrated on campus Monday wearing masks. This after university leadership told the White House they would ban mask wearing on campus as part of the new agreement. It does not appear any of those students faced consequences.
The court order barring deportations of alleged Venezuelan gang members under the Wartime Alien Enemies Act is still in place. This after no change from a 3-judge panel. During a 2-hour-long hearing in D.C. Monday, the Justice Department again called for that order to be lifted, but the ACLU claimed many of the people sent to El Salvador earlier this month were not actually gang members. The panel's only Democratic appointee pushed back against the government's use of the Alien Enemies Act, saying the Trump administration completely skipped due process, with a U.S. appeals court judge saying, quote, Nazis got better treatment under the Alien Enemy Act than what has happened here, end quote. That comment drawing sharp criticism from the Trump team.
Well, it's ridiculous. It's just another example of a radical judge saying something that's just disgusting. We removed terrorists. To compare that any way whatsoever with Nazis is disgusting on every level.
The Department of Justice is also refusing to provide more information to the courts about the timeline of the deportation flights, invoking a state secrets privilege.
Moving on and shifting our focus to Canada, Canadians once topped the list of global travelers to the U.S. But they are now increasingly keeping away from traveling to the neighbor. The reason? U.S. President Donald Trump's renewed threats on annexing Canada and imposing trade tariffs. Data shows a sharp dip in the number of trips taken by Canadians both by air and the land route. As per data from Statistics Canada, the country's national statistical agency, Canadians returned from 13% fewer trips by air to the U.S. in February than they did a year ago. Not just that, land border crossings too fell, with the same outlet reporting that return trips from the U.S. undertaken by Canadians in February dropped 23% from a year earlier. What explains this? You see, as for the Wall Street Journal, more than Trump's tariff threats, his annexation plans have caused a great deal of anxiety among the Canadians, who are now increasingly unwilling to take trips across the border. Reports of prolonged detentions for tourists and green card holders have further discouraged them to holiday in the U.S. Just after Trump announced new tariffs soon after he took office, then Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, encouraged Canadians to change their vacation plans to focus on exploring sites within the country and perhaps not travel to the U.S. And it seems to have worked wonders for domestic tourism. But this could be bad news for the U.S. economy. As per the U.S. Travel Association Trade Group, Canadians made 20.2 million visits to the U.S. in 2024. And experts warn that a 10% drop could lead to $2 billion in lost revenue and more than 14,000 jobs lost. That's huge, and the impact is already being felt. Cities and small towns near the U.S.-Canada border. And what does the Trump administration have to say about this? Well, it remained firm on the U.S. president's conviction of turning Canada into the 51st American state, with the White House spokesperson Anna Kelly saying in an email that once Canadians become Americans, their international travel worries would be resolved once and for all. The Trump impact, by the way, that has not just affected the travel aspect of Canadians, but also their daily lifestyles. More and more Canadians are opting for homegrown options for groceries and other essentials. In short, they're going local, with more and more consumers embracing a Buy Canadian movement. Now, is this shift to going local for always, or will proposed tariffs in other sectors bring about a change in how Canadians think and act? The coming days will reveal. Well, China has accused the U.S. of interfering in Venezuela's internal affairs. And this accusation by China comes after U.S. President Donald Trump announced 25% tariffs on imports from countries that buy oil and gas from Venezuela. The tariffs, he said, could come into effect as soon as on April 2nd. Well, China is the largest importer of Venezuelan oil, while other buyers of the Venezuelan crude oil includes India, Spain and the US itself. In a press conference, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Gua Jiakun called on the US to stop interfering in Venezuela's internal affairs. Also, he urged the US to abolish what it called the illegal unilateral sanctions imposed on Venezuela. The South American country has been under U.S. sanctions for years, including a new round in January. Announcing the tariffs on Monday, Trump on social media platform Truth Social accused Venezuela of being very hostile to the U.S., of purposefully sending undercover tens of thousands of high-level and other criminals to the U.S. That's what Trump has accused Venezuela for. Meanwhile, the Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, hit back at Trump's announcement and said they can sanction and impose tariffs on whoever they want. What they will not be able to sanction is the love and patriotism of the Venezuelan people.
Las sanciones de ayer las derrotamos.
Yesterday's sanctions, we defeated them, and those to come, we will also defeat them with work, inventive creation, love and patriotism. They can sanction and impose tariffs on whoever they want. What they will not be able to sanction is the love and patriotism of the Venezuelan people.
According to Trump's order, the 25% tariff would expire a year after a country has last imported Venezuelan oil. The tariffs are likely to hit countries like India and China, which import oil from the South American country. In December 2023 and January 2024, India was the top buyer of Venezuelan crude oil at 254,000 barrels per day. India's oil import was nearly half of Venezuela's total oil export in January. Similarly, apart from India, China imported 500,000 barrels of oil per day from Venezuela in February.
South Sudan is on the brink of renewed civil war, according to the top UN official in the country. Nicholas Haysom called the situation dire after the government's sudden postponement of peace efforts. He emphasised that international efforts can only succeed if President Salva Kiir and Vice President Riek Machar are willing to put their people's interests first. South Sudan, which gained independence in 2011, descended into civil war in 2013, largely fueled by ethnic divisions between Kiir's Dinka group and Machar's Nuer group. Over 40,000 lives were lost before a 2018 peace agreement brought both leaders together in a unity government. However, elections meant for 2023 were postponed to December 2024 and then again to 2026. Recent fighting between government troops and a rebel militia in the north has escalated tensions. Earlier this month, a UN helicopter was targeted during a mission to evacuate troops.
And in other news, violent clashes broke out between police and student protesters in Indonesia's Surabaya against a newly passed military law. Around 1,000 students and activists dressed in black protested in front of an East Java government building. The protesters held posters that said, "Reject the military law," and the military should return to the barracks. Now, protesters were seen hurling rocks, sticks and Molotov cocktails towards the police. Indonesian police resorted to water cannons to disperse the protesters. Well, the protests have been sparked by an amendment to the military law passed by the Indonesian parliament last week. The amendment expands the role of armed forces in civilian affairs, and under the new law, active military officers can hold positions in 14 government institutions, up from 10 in the previous law.
First, we reject the revision of the Indonesian military law. Second, we reject the expansion of the military's roles in civilian institutions. Third, we reject the expansion of military's functions, especially in the cyber domain. Fourth, disband the TNI's territorial commands. Fifth, withdraw all military personnel from Papua. Sixth, return soldiers back to the barracks.
Yang keenam, kembalikan militer ke barak. Well, the law has sparked fears of a return to the era of late dictator Suharto, which saw a brutal crackdown on dissent by the Indonesian military.
All right, now the ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia, it's in its fourth year, but it is now having a profound impact on the morale of soldiers in neighboring countries. In Czech Republic, there has been a major increase in the number of soldiers leaving the military. According to reports, the number of dismissals has increased by 40% since the beginning of the war. Czech Defense Minister Jana Černochová attributes this trend to the public climate fueled by threats of mobilization and deployment to Ukraine. She said that many soldiers who joined the army during peaceful times are now using these threats as an excuse to leave the Czech army. The Czech Republic abolished mandatory military service in 2004 and has since maintained a professional army. However, the latest data shows that 1,370 servicemen left the army in 2024 compared to 1,200 in 2023 and 1,300 in 2022. And this represents a major increase from the pre-Russia-Ukraine era when the annual number of soldiers quitting the army was between 800 to 1,000. Chernochová's recent statements shed light on the motivations behind the rising number of departures from the Czech military. Her off-the-record discussions with military personnel provided insights into the challenges faced by the Czech Defense Ministry in perhaps maintaining the military strength and capabilities. The situation also highlights the broader impact of the Russia-Ukraine war on European militaries and, like I mentioned, the morale of the soldiers. Like Czech Republic in maintaining morale and retention among their troops, there are also other countries who are going through a similar turmoil. On recent visits to Ukraine, Czech President Petr Pavel signaled that his country is ready to join a potential foreign troop deployment in the event that Kyiv and Moscow agree on a truce.
There was a meeting of chiefs of defense in London, whose primary purpose was to talk about modalities of potential military presence in Ukraine. And Czech Republic is ready to be part of that negotiation. And if there is finally a decision to create such a force, I truly believe the Czech Republic would be part of it.
The United States has intensified airstrikes against Yemen's Houthi rebels, claiming the elimination of key figures, including their top missile commander. National Security Advisor stated that American forces have targeted Houthi leadership, communication centers, weapon factories, and drone production facilities. The airstrikes, now in their 10th consecutive day, follow Houthi attacks on commercial shipping and threats to resume targeting vessels in the Red Sea. Since November 2023, the Houthis have launched over 100 strikes on merchant ships, resulting in the sinking of 2 vessels and the death of 4 sailors. One recent strike reportedly hit a building in the western district of capital Sana'a, killing at least 1 person and injuring 13 others. The U.S. maintains that these operations aim to deter Houthi aggression and send a clear message to Iran, the group's main supporter. President Donald Trump has declared that Iran will be held accountable for any attacks by the Houthi group in Yemen.
Nobody was texting war plans.
Plead ignorance.
I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
Evaluate.
We have taken a step back.
A spectrum of responses from US President Donald Trump's administration after reports that a journalist was given access to a group chat that the nation's highest national security officials were using to plan military action. Writing in The Atlantic, editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg said he was mistakenly added into a group on the messaging app Signal earlier in the month. Among its members, Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, the latter apparently texting details of an attack in Yemen 2 hours before bombs began exploding. Part of Trump's ongoing campaign against Houthi rebels over the group's attacks against cargo ships in the Red Sea. But despite the evidence, including screenshots from Goldberg, Hegseth has been quick to try and discredit his claims.
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again.
The oversight has ignited a storm of criticism from across the political spectrum, with top Democrats demanding a full investigation into the blunder and calling out the officials involved for gross incompetence.
Though I will note that the Secretary of Defense, who was on that chain, has got to be the most unqualified person ever to lead the Pentagon in American history.
Signal, the commercial messaging app hosting the group chat, has not been approved by the US government for sharing sensitive information. If found to have taken place outside of secure channels, the conversation could violate the Espionage Act. And despite the controversy, the White House has been celebrating the attacks on the Houthis as highly successful and effective, paying little mind to what Democrats are calling the most stunning breach of military intelligence. John Su and Rhys Ayres for Taiwan Plus.
Amid the controversy over America's leaked Yemen war plan, Houthis claimed they targeted several warships in the Red Sea, including the U.S. aircraft carrier Harry S. Truman. In a press briefing, in fact, the Houthi spokesperson, Yahya Sarria, said the group targeted the vessels using ballistic and cruise missiles and drones. This a day after U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth ordered the extension of Harry S. Truman's deployment in West Asia. Also directed USS Carl Vinson, which has been operating in the Pacific, to begin streaming towards the region. In fact, the Houthi spokesperson said the attack on the warships was in response to the American aggression against Yemen, what it called the massacres against civilians in Sana'a and Sadr. The Houthi spokesperson said the operation lasted several hours.
This engagement, the second within 24 hours, lasted several hours and thwarted an aerial attack that the enemy was preparing to carry out against our country.
Sarria also said the Houthis launched 2 missiles targeting the airport in Israel, and the Houthi spokesperson said the airport was hit by 2 ballistic missiles. Air raids, sirens and explosions were heard over Jerusalem, Tel Aviv and central Israel on Monday as the Israeli military said it intercepted a missile launch from Yemen. It is the 6th time the military says it has intercepted a missile launch from Yemen after Israel resumed its bombardment of Gaza last Tuesday, shattering a period of relative calm since a January truce.
In support of the oppressed Palestinian people and in solidarity with its brave and noble resistance, the missile forces targeted Ben Gurion Airport in the occupied city of Jaffa with 2 ballistic missile, one Zulfikar and the other a hypersonic Palestine II missile. By the grace of Allah, the operation successfully achieved its objective.
The Israeli army says it has yet again struck 2 military bases in central Syria, a day after the European Union's foreign policy chief warned strikes in Syria and Lebanon risked escalation. Referring to the 2 targets, one in Palmyra and another 50 kilometers west of the city, the Israeli military said it struck military capabilities that remained at the Syrian military bases of Tadmur and T4. The IDF added that it will continue to act in order to remove any threat posed to the Israeli citizens. On Friday, Israel confirmed targeting the same bases after a war monitor first reported the raids. Meanwhile, international internet monitoring service NetBlocks is reporting a nationwide internet shutdown in Syria. Israel has launched hundreds of strikes on military sites in Syria since HTS-led rebels overthrew Bashar al-Assad in December. Israel says it wants to prevent weapons from falling into the hands of new authorities it considers jihadists. The Israeli military has also deployed troops in the UN-patrolled buffer zone on the Golan Heights, while Prime Minister Netanyahu has demanded the demilitarization of southern Syria. Syria's foreign ministry has accused Israel of waging a campaign against the stability of the country. On Monday, during a visit to Jerusalem, the EU foreign policy chief had warned that Israeli strikes on Syria and Lebanon were threatening to worsen the situation. And we earlier spoke to Dr. Wael Awad, an international journalist and senior vice president, Middle East and North Africa International Relations, distinguished advisor, West Asia at the Tilottamo Foundation. He serves as a distinguished advisor for the Global Counterterrorism Council. Take a look at what he shared with us.
I believe the new strategy for the Israeli government is to make sure that there is a new reality created after the fall of Assad regime, because you see, it was the same group that Israel have been supporting since 2013, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and they have been funding them, and they were treating the patients of all the fighters who were fighting the Syrian government at the occupied Golan Heights, and then they sent them back. So now Israel realized that these groups are terrorist group in their own prescription of this, and they cannot be given advantage of taking part in the near to Israel and create a kind of a threat to security to Israel in the future. So therefore, Israel have been expanding, cementing its position in Syria. That's already controlling 3 provinces of Syria, deep 65 kilometers deep inside Syria, and controlling all the road to Damascus. And now by attacking Palmyra and Tinfour and these 2 military bases in the center of Syria, it's a clear indication that the expansion of Israeli influence in Syria will extend throughout the border from Jordan up to Iraq, up to the Kurdish area where the United States is controlling. And I think that's a clear violation of the sovereignty and integrity of Syria, because the future of Syria at stake, especially with the continuous occupation of Israel and the United States and Turkey of the Syrian territory, not to speak of the current government of Syria, which is unable to spread its control all over Syria.